Hello, welcome to another fight review video. So last night, Tony Bellew finally squared up against David Haye in a heavyweight 12 rounder. As the build up for the fight was quite controversial, as many people do know if you followed it, there was a lot of bickering going back and forth, a lot of verbal conversations between Bellew and Haye. It started off from Tony Bellew's previous performance against BJ Flores for the WBC Cruiserweight belt. Bellew called Haye out, and then obviously from there it escalated into spats online and obviously conversations, and then eventually they actually scheduled the fight last night, March 4th. So in my prediction video, I did say David Haye was going to win because he was too fast, too skillful, and he had too many things going up against Bellew for him to win the fight. But anyone did watch the fight, of course, that did know that Tony Bellew beat David Haye by a 11th round knockout. The actual fight itself was quite poor in terms of quality, and I personally thought David Haye would be rusty, of course, because he's been, I think it's 5 years since a competitive fight. I don't care who you are, you're going to be slightly rusty. I mean, unless you're amazing talent like Sugar Ray Leonard, for example, who didn't fight for 5 years. Then he faced Marvin Hagler, hands down the best middleweight at the time, and he beat him by that was controversial, and some people said he won, some people said he didn't. But David Haye has been sort of not blighted of injury, but he had injury problems previously, pulled out against Manuel Char and Tyson Fury, so he's had injuries sort of to contend with. And I know he had 2 fights last year, but they were just sort of like, I guess, warm-up fights for a bigger fight, which of course was a Tony Bellew fight. So the fight itself was quite poor. Haye was very wild. He didn't really sort of know what he was doing. He just wanted to go in there and just knock him out quickly, because I did actually think going into the fight that if it went later rounds, there could be a chance that Bellew might win. And of course, those views were true. David Haye looked like he sort of run out of ideas by, I guess, the 4th or 5th round. And in the 6th round, unfortunately, he did damage his ankle, or his leg, or both, I'm not really sure. But it turns out now he did damage his Achilles, which of course is going to affect any fighter's performance. And credit to David Haye, he did actually give the best he could from round 6 to 11, but unfortunately it wasn't good enough. He tried to hit Bellew as hard as he could, and he did catch him a couple of times flush, but Bellew wasn't having any of it because he was a fresher fighter, more active fighter. So I guess in terms of willpower, I mean, David Haye was up there. He had he had obviously as much as willpower as anyone else had, but in terms of sheer determination, I think once his Achilles was obviously damaged, I don't think anyone could really come back from that. So Tony Bellew obviously eventually knocked down David Haye in the 11th. David Haye fell outside the ring. He got back inside the ring, but Shane McGregor, Haye's trainer, threw in the towel. So of course gives Tony Bellew the knockout victory, TKO victory in the 11th round. Like I said, the fight wasn't very good before that. It was quite wild. Bellew had his moments, so did Haye. Haye landed a good couple of shots, so did Bellew. But in terms of this sort of big grudge domestic matchup, it didn't really live up to the hype. I mean, the fights before were quite impressive. Katie Taylor was really impressive again. Sam Eggington beat Paulie Malignaggi by knockout, and that was a good fight for what it lasted. Hara Davis as well, I think he beat, was it Derry Matthews by the 3rd round. I saw that on the Instagram, like a minute video, that he absolutely annihilated him in the 3rd round. But in terms of sort of the big matchup, it was quite poor. I mean, Tony Bellew, of course, he's not like the most athletic. He isn't the most toned fighter. He doesn't have like a 6-pack or like toned arms, and he's never had that sort of thing. But like, he's a good, solid, tough fighter. And I did say in my prediction he is a tough fighter, but obviously toughness can only get you a certain amount of way. But of course my prediction was wrong. David Haye tried his best, but I guess if you've got injuries and you're 36 years old with injuries, plus been inactivity for quite a while as well, then it's sort of a lot going against you in the fight. That if he fought, I don't know, 2 years ago, like properly, and then had these 2 sort of tune-up fights, and then fought Tony Bellew, it might have been a different story. But injuries can always happen to the fittest of people. David Haye could have been 25, 26, like he was when he was in the Cruiserweight division, and he could easily have injured himself and not carried on. It's just one of those things. But Tony Bellew obviously is beating David Haye now by round 11 knockout. The post-fight interviews were, I guess, standard as always. Like just you're going to say all the nice things after, because the things before and you're going to try and sell the fight. So, and there was talk of rematch, but personally I think David Haye's career is probably finished now. I mean, he was a great cruiserweight, he was a decent heavyweight, he fought, I guess, fringe people like John Ruiz and Audie Harrison. When he fought, obviously, Vadim Klitschko back in 2011, he was at the top of his game. He got exposed for, I guess, like a lower quality opponent compared to Klitschko. But he's done well cruiserweight. I mean, he was unified WBA, WBC, WBO and Ring Magazine cruiserweight title holder. So he was good in that division, and he was good at heavyweight. Beat Nikolai Bellew for the WBA belt. He's good at talking, he's good at sending the fight, yeah, that's great. But obviously when it comes down to it at the minute, to his current point, he doesn't have it anymore, which is fine, because 36 years old, he's had a great career, made a lot of money, been in some big domestic fights, been some interesting world title fights as well, so it's not like he's got nothing to show for it in his career. Tony Bellew, on the other hand, I don't think he's a heavyweight, because yeah, he's got the size and figures David Haye, but David Haye is a cruiserweight coming up from heavyweight. I think his best bet is to go back down to cruiserweight, defend his WBC belt the most he can. If he wants to do that, of course, I think that'd be the best bet. He did quite Deontay Wilder, but I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, beating David Haye is one thing, it's still a good achievement, but David Haye was injured. People would say online that if David Haye wasn't injured, it would have been a different story, but that might have been true, it might not have been true, so you can't really say that, because if I got injured and trying to fight someone, yeah, obviously they can take credit because they beat me, but like if you injure yourself, you're not going to be 110%. So the thing is, even before David Haye got injured, he was in great condition, yeah, he was muscular, athletic, like he always is, he's always in great shape, and he trained as best as he could, you can tell he did, but if you're inactive for that while, when you're fighting against someone, a live opponent, an active opponent, who fights back and moves about, it doesn't matter if he's Tony Bellew or if he's bloody, I don't know, Andy Joshua or something, for example. Like, an active fighter is still a better fighter than an inactive fighter. So, I said David had a great career, but I think it's time if he retired now. I think you could make a good pundit or something. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities you could do, like Sky or something, or many other TV networks. But I think Tony Bellew's best bet is to go down to cruiserweight division and defend his WBC belt as much as he can, and go from there. It's still a great win on his record. If the rematch ever does happen, of course I'll watch it and see what will go from there, but I don't think that would be a good idea, because David Haye, obviously, like I said, he's injured quite a lot. He's getting old now. Tony Bellew isn't as young as he once was, he's 34, so you never know, a couple of years' time he might want to retire. Who knows? I mean, he said he made a lot of money for his family, which is great. Who knows, he might not even want to fight much longer, he might want to fight a couple of times and then retire, so who knows. I mean, the rematch, if David Haye was a fully 110% fit and he was fully fit, healthy, and he trained correctly, Tony Bellew was exactly the same as well, it could be a different scenario, but of course David Haye tried his best. Sometimes you get unlucky with injuries. So anyway, write down in the comments down below what you thought about the fight, and see you next video.